Yeah, well, thank you for coming once again, and a very good afternoon to all of you. It seems you are all gentlemen. The gender bias in the media. Yeah, I made a statement yesterday in the circumstances in which I was, because you were not allowed to get through to me yesterday. I nonetheless recorded a statement by myself and sent it out, basically to say three things. One, to reject the outcome of the election, because what was billed to be the final result had been communicated by the Electoral Commission. And two, to demand an international audit of the election. And three, to inform our people that we will not cooperate with any fraudulent government that claims to have emerged out of these elections, and that our people should therefore be ready to challenge and deny cooperation the regime that wants to impose itself on our country. Now, I'm sure you all know that the electoral process, the election of 2016 is not yet over. There is no conclusive president-elect as yet, because our Constitution, and to be precise, in Article 104 of the Ugandan Constitution, it provides for challenging the outcome of the election. And nobody is conclusively elected unless that process of challenging the outcome of the election has been exhausted. So we still have candidate Museveni and candidate Besigye at this point in time. Now, candidate Besigye, who has rejected the outcome of these elections, is detained. Not just now that I'm detained in my home, but before being detained here, I was detained in police cells. No charge at all has been indicated to me as to why I am detained, both while at the police and now while here. No charge of any kind, no communication even has been made to me to say that I am under detention for the following reasons. I was forcefully removed from the cells where I was detained in Nagalama police because I was demanding to know why I had been detained in the first place. And if I was being released, I demanded to have a release form to say I am now being given a bond, police bond, which I expected would include the reason that I had been detained for. They declined to give me any form of documentation, and when I insisted on staying in the cells until they do so, they forcefully evicted us from the police cells, myself and my party president, Major General Mugisha Muntu. We were brought back by force, as we were taken by force. Now, The Constitution gives me only 10 days in which to petition the outcome of this election. The Constitution and the laws also require me to assemble evidence or evidence by affidavit that would have to be filed within the 10 days. I am expected to assemble evidence while under detention. This clearly goes to show that we are not dealing with an election. We are not dealing with a situation where there is a rule of law, where there is respect for the Constitution. We are dealing with a situation where we have a rogue regime. We are dealing with an outright rogue regime that acts with impunity. And this was the situation well before the election. We knew all this. This is why we said right from the beginning that the election of 2016 cannot be free or fair. It had no possibility of being free or fair, because you cannot have a free and fair election in a situation where freedoms are not available. There is a law that stops assemblies unless the Inspector General of Police allows them. If you want to gather 3 or 4 people, you will need the Inspector General of Police to authorize you to hold such a meeting. This is by courtesy of the notorious Public Order Management Act, which was challenged in the Constitutional Court, but where no verdict or resolution has ever been delivered in respect of that law. But even without that law, the police was acting with impunity to stop assemblies, to stop movement. I have been detained since the last election. I have been detained now 45 times since the last election. Not charged with anything, simply stopping me from doing what I ought to do. Freedom of speech, as indeed you may have seen in this particular election, when the social media platforms were all closed. That is the environment in which we are. No freedom of the media. Media houses, again, have been closed for allowing certain views to be expressed. Some of us cannot go to influential media houses, certainly the government-owned media houses. The only one time in the last 15 years that I have been a leader in the opposition, the only one time that I went on UBC television, my host was summarily dismissed. And since then, nobody can risk host me on the government media. We knew even before this election that the NRM is fused with the government. We are not dealing with the most important organ of government, to my mind, is the local council one, especially in respect of elections. The local council one is the grassroots structure of government. Since Uganda became allowed multi-party system, parties to function, no election has ever happened in that council, local council one. So whereas we masquerade as a multi-party dispensation, at the most critical area of our government, parties are not participating. The grassroots structure, the LC1. We have government organs like the resident district commissioners, RDC, who openly work as NRM agents. So this is the situation that cannot allow a free and fair election to be held, where public funds are opulently spent on partisan activities of NRM. Because the NRM as an organization or party has no process of collecting contributions from its members. No member of NRM routinely contributes to NRM. Even party cards of NRM to members are free. Nobody pays for a party card from NRM. So the resources NRM uses are entirely drawn from public resources. And this is why they cannot declare the source of their money. Of course, the most critical element that denies freedom is the role of the security and military institutions, which routinely violate the rights of citizens, torture, and kill citizens who are expressing themselves. Even in this election alone, we've already buried a number of people. Recall that in 2006 elections, 3 of our supporters were gunned down right in front of me while holding my campaign posters, sending chilling. We knew for sure that the election of 2016 could not be, had no chance of being a free and fair election. Nonetheless, we took a conscious and deliberate decision to participate in the election because we believed that it will give us an opportunity to rally citizens to override all these obstacles that were arranged against us. And I am extremely proud of our citizens because they rose up to the occasion. They stood up to the intimidation. They stood up to the partisanship of all the departments and institutions that were organizing these elections. And they came up to vote. They came out to vote in strength. They came out to vote. So the reason we rejected the election outcome is not because of the inherent unfairness and injustice. That was not the reason. The reason we rejected the outcome was because of what happened on the 18th and the 19th of February. And this is especially, among others, the targeting and disenfranchising of hundreds of thousands of our supporters through deliberate delay of elections in parts of the country that are well known to support the opposition. There is absolutely no justifiable cause that can be advanced why materials could not be delivered in Kampala, even in distances where people could have walked with them from the headquarters of the Electoral Commission to the polling stations, and that they could not vote until in the afternoon when people had given up, who had been there right from 6 a.m. And in any case, even up to now, the results from those areas are not part of what was declared in Museveni's win. They said those are no longer necessary. So in what constitutes what the Electoral Commission announced, the results of Kampala, Wakiso, Kasese, Rukunjiri, other areas are not included. We rejected the outcome of the elections because indeed at very many polling stations, our agents were arrested or chased, and elections went on without our supervision. And in other polling stations, indeed, people were being given pre-ticked ballot papers. They would issue pre-ticked ballot papers so that their only option was either to drop that already ticked ballot paper in the box as given, or to add another mark and make the vote invalid. And indeed, I think as a result of our people's defiance, I think many chose to invalidate those votes. And that's why you have an unprecedented number of invalid votes. In fact, more, I think the number of invalid votes come third after Museveni's vote and my vote. The next biggest vote is the invalid vote, more than what all the other candidates got. We rejected this election because indeed there was a lot of ballot stuffing. And in several places, indeed, the ballots cast were more than the registered number of voters. So we are rejecting this election because of potent and verifiable injustices that happened on polling day and the day after. The Karamoja region, where Mr. Museveni is said to have got almost 100% of the votes, is one that I think all of you people should take interest in, because there was a lot of criminality. Ballot boxes were actually hijacked by people who were supposed to escort them to those places. And as we talk, there is somebody who is critically injured, who was in charge of one of the trucks that was taking ballot boxes and ballot materials and polling materials to Karamoja. But over and above all this, I think the most fatal thing even is that even with all this, Mr. Museveni was still not winning. They had to alter results, which we knew they had a plan to do. And that's why we were demanding to inspect a house in Naguru, in the Naguru suburb of Kampala, where this fraud was headquartered. That's where the ICT headquarters of altering the results was located. So what was being announced by Kigundu in Nambole actually had nothing to do, a lot of what he announced had nothing to do with what his own officials of the Electoral Commission announced at the polling stations and witnessed by themselves. And it was that discrepancy that we intended to present early enough to the country and to the Electoral Commission that what he was reading was fiction, because we had the actual results signed by his officials. And this is what prompted the storming of our headquarters and our subsequent arrest and the takeover. Basically, our headquarters was taken over by the police to capture those materials and to stop the information going out to the people of Uganda about this criminal fraud activity that was being perpetuated. So that is why we have demanded an international audit. International audit because of what I have said of the regime institutions. The regime institutions are all, occupied presently by NRM activists. They are not independent institutions. And I think if they are confident about their win, they should have nothing to hide. They should allow an internationally supervised audit of the election. Even to confirm what they say is their win, so that they credibly dismiss us as rumor mongers and liars, which Mr. Museveni is always keen to do. Having said that, we reserve the right to petition the Supreme Court challenging the outcome of this election. And we therefore need and are entitled to assemble evidence that can make us decide to petition or otherwise. Therefore, in light of that, I will be going to the Electoral Commission tomorrow in the morning by 9 a.m. I want to be at the Electoral Commission to demand a copy of what they have published as results. And since some of our documents were confiscated, I will also be demanding copies of what they have, official copies of what they have, that we contest. And so all our people should know these steps that we are taking. I invite all our leaders and people who take interest in this process to come with me to the Electoral Commission tomorrow and to all the other places we intend to visit in an attempt to assemble what we require to establish the basis for our further actions. We have, in the meantime, stated that we are not going to cooperate with this regime or any regime that purports to be formed out of these fraudulent elections. And our people should remain firm, should remain strong. This is our country. We must have rights in our country. We must be treated with dignity in our country. And if the regime continues to restrict me, to detain me in my home, illegal as it is, I call upon all of you citizens to protest this. At the very minimum, let us also stop them from moving. We all have the same interests in this country. You cannot detain us and continue enjoying your own freedom. This will not be acceptable. So let's remain vigilant. Let's remain alert. Fortunately, we have an elaborate network of communication now. And it should be as vigilant as possible so that this matter is resolved once and for all. Because over the last 53 years, we have only had military dictatorships. No leader has ever handed over power peacefully to another leader. This must stop. We deserve better as a country. We cannot continue to live in our country where our resources are stolen with impunity, while our people die of lack of medicine, lack of clean water, are dying on the terrible roads that are all over the country. This we must stop. We are not going to relent. We are not going to go backwards. We are not turning back. This matter must be resolved once and for all. Thank you. We don't have the information as yet. We know, as I have pointed out, that there are gross irregularities, malpractices. We want to assemble that so that we are, whatever we can, because as I have told you, already the invasion of our headquarters and takeover of our headquarters has disrupted a lot of what we were already assembling. And so we will still try to achieve as much as we can in terms of getting the actual situation as it is.
Sir, could you clarify exactly what...
It's an audit that involves some international presence. We are not saying that the international community should come and solely conduct the audit. I believe in such an audit, we would be represented, the parties that are aggrieved and the NRM and international auditors. We are saying it should be supervised, headed by people that all of us have some respect for.
Exactly who are you calling for here? Just to be specific.
I wouldn't like to be specific because the international community, as you know, is as diverse as it can be. These are details that we can certainly delve into once the principle. The first thing is the principle of an audit, and an audit that is credible to the extent that it's not just by the institutions, the discredited institutions. That is the main principle. How then that is put together is a matter of detail.
Given all that's happened over the last week, has it made you reconsider your political life?
No, not at all. My political life is pretty, you know, much spent. I don't have much political life ahead of me. I have already used most of it. And I have used nearly my entire adult life struggling for good government in our country. Doesn't make sense retiring this late. More so because that long struggle has costed a lot of people huge sacrifices. Many of our colleagues have died in this struggle. If we give it up, then it would be, to my mind, a betrayal. No, I will hang in there. I will do what I can until we have a decent government, we have a decent, political system that abides by the rule of law, that respects the rights of citizens, that respects constitutionalism. That's the bottom line.
You are going to petition in the courts of law?
No, I didn't say that. I've said that that option is open to me. And in order to keep it open, I must assemble what is needed in such a process.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. With all that, do you expect to get justice where you believe, because it's not going to be the first time that you are going to court, and President Museveni still has influence?
I've told you I haven't made a decision whether to go or not. I've said it's open to me. The Constitution gives me that channel, which is open to me. Participating in the last election was open to me. I, for a long time, did not want to participate in it. But once it is open to me, it is my choice. Whether I believe that I will get justice or not, if I choose to go, I want to have what it takes to go. So for now, the important thing is that I need to prepare in case I choose to go. Because, as I have pointed out to you, there is no conclusively elected president of Uganda through this election yet. We are all still candidates. And so all options are open.
Once I could just one more question. We continue to on the streets, even when we are going to Kasangati, soldiers of the world. And if I'm to quote the party president, Major General Mugisha Muntu, yesterday called, in his own words, he said this is a creeping coup d'etat. What do you have to say about this?
No, I mean, any casual observer would realize that there is something grossly amiss in this post-announcement process. Because if anybody won with 60% of the vote, those people should be jubilating somewhere. There should be some indication of some people that are happy to see, that they are declared as winners. There is nothing. Instead, the people you see on the streets are there to scare people to come to town. It's the regime now. We have a besieged regime. The regime is besieged, and it's all over with guns and armored vehicles and all kinds of things, as if there is a war situation in the country. They are the only ones with arms. Citizens of Uganda are not armed. We are not even like the Americans, where everybody has guns in their homes. Nobody here has a gun except the military and the police. So why they should be so scared of their citizens, unarmed citizens, to the extent that they are, tells the story. Tells the story that this is not a regime with people's will. This is just an imposition. That's the story it tells. Citizens are being held captive by gunmen, and that's exactly the basis of my defiance campaign. The only way to get out of this is to use the popular numbers that we have to make sure that these gunmen don't continue to do what they are doing. And if we withdraw our cooperation from them, they will not survive as a regime if we withdraw our cooperation from them. And they should rest assured that we are not going to let them continue marauding, all over the place, holding the country hostage. It will not happen. Even now, many of our people are detained, without charges. In Hoima, we have our leaders, they are detained. You saw what happened in Kasese, again, where one person was killed, and so on and so forth. This is not an election that can be talked about. And really, my frank advice to Mr. Museveni is this: our country and other countries in the region have had the misfortune of having dictators. But, I think dictators behave honestly. Say there will be no elections. We had here Idi Amin, General Idi Amin. He said he was a life president and told everybody else to keep quiet. He said, I'm a life president, I will be here. God has advised me to rule over this country. And he was there, not wasting people's money that he's organizing an election and causing people to die and doing all kinds of things. No. So, since he's the Sabarwanyi, he's the general who owns the army, who owns the money, who owns the oil, let him not put the country through all this, inconvenience. He can declare himself, a life president. It won't be at least new to us. And we see how to adjust to that situation.
Sir, regarding the house that you were arrested outside, and just to explain how you think that was used to affect the elections, and also whether you have any evidence.
By the time we went there, I did not know who was in charge. What we had was evidence from first-hand information from people who were coming out of the house, that is, and they were indeed still stuck of ballot papers in that house. That's why we were demanding, and we went to the police and said, we demand that you open, and there's nothing there. But two is the ICT operation. That's the hub where actually all communication from the districts is diverted first. What goes to the Electoral Commission from reliable information that we have comes from there. That's where the manipulation of results takes place. And when I was being taken to Nagarama police, the officer who arrested me, Police Assistant Commissioner Opolot, I had him talking on phone while we were in the vehicle, saying that that house is under Police Crime Intelligence Unit. Police Crime Intelligence Unit. Now that unit then rang a bell, because that unit was created sometime, I think last year or so. And an officer of the military called Lieutenant Colonel Ndahura was appointed to head that police unit. Why, after 30 years of a government, you need a military officer to head a police unit is something that even our people should interrogate the government about. Why, after 30 years of a government, you need General Kayihura to head the Uganda police when he has never done a day's training in police? All these are questions that point to what type of government we have. But that Lieutenant Colonel Ndahura is not new to election malpractices. He was prominently mentioned in the election petition of 201, my petition against the outcome of the elections of 201. At that time, he was a captain and headed the Presidential Protection Unit that committed a lot of malpractices in my home district, Rukunjiri. And so his appointment to head that unit, when it came, and at the time it came, indeed raised a lot of suspicion to some of us. So what I heard being said that is their unit, simply further, added further circumstantial evidence about what that house was all about. I guess you want me to say what I said in Uganda?